everyone, this is Mr. DeBetz, and in today's Adobe After Effects tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make a spray paint animation. It's going to look something like this. So again, you have some nice arch here, some good secondary motion, and then also anticipation if we're thinking about our principles of animation. Alright, so in order to get started, make sure you open up the project file on Canvas. Once you have the project file open on Canvas, you're going to select the can layer. Once we have the can layer, we want to make sure that the anchor point is at the top of the can. So again, make sure you go to your toolbar, look for the pan behind anchor point tool, click and select it. And then again, just make sure that this point looks like a sort of like a cross or a sniper's eye. It's at the top of the can. Once you have that done, we are now going to parent some layers. So select the valve layer. Once you have the valve layer selected, we're going to go here to this whirlpool icon, click, drag it to the can. So now that they're grouped together and this is all one shape. All right, now we need to copy a motion path of the paint that's going to emulate the can. So to do this, go to your paint layer. Once you have the paint layer selected, you're going to open up the contents menu. Once you have the contents menu open up the paint, and then you're going to look for path. Open up the path layer, make sure you have all three of these selected, and then you're going to see here that we have our path animation already made for us. And then we're going to just copy it by hitting Command C on the keyboard, and then going back to our can layer, select the can layer, hit P for position, click on position, and then Command V to copy the path layer. So now we have our can, and then you just want to drag it so that this is fitting within the paint here. So again, it should be aligned. I'm going to hit spacebar just to see what this looks like. So yeah, just adjust your can until it seems like it's a good fit and matches the paint layer. All right, now that the motion path of the paint is matching the can, our next step is just to sort of smooth out our animation. So first thing you're going to want to do is, once you still have position open, make sure you click and drag and select all of these keyframes. Once you have all the keyframes selected on your timeline, you're going to open up your speed graph editor. So click on graph editor, make sure you have speed graph open and selected. And then once you do that, we're going to click on this line and we're going to just sort of drag this yellow node downwards to give it a little bit of an arc on both sides. So click again on the square, yellow square, drag it downwards. So now we have a bit of an arch. Once you do that, you're going to drag these points inward on either side. So the right side, and then I'm going to drag this point inward also on the right. So it gives us this sort of nice up and down motion. So now when I play it, you should see a little bit more speed, especially there at the end. So again, just going into our speed graph and messing around with the speed of this just a little bit. All right, now our next step is to add a little bit of rotation to the can. Right now when it plays, it's just sort of stiff. There isn't much motion to it. So in order to do that, just make sure you first close the graph. You're going to have your can layer selected, and then you're going to hit Shift and R to open up the rotation value. Once you have the rotation menu open, we're going to drop a keyframe at the 0-second mark. And once you drop this keyframe, we're now going to start adjusting the rotation. So go to the second value here, and we're going to put it at about -12. Then we're going to slide your time cursor over here, go to our second keyframe, and then we're going to change the value of the rotation back to 0. Once you have that, we're going to go to our third keyframe. We're going to change that value to about -10. -10, -11. Then we're going to go to our very last keyframe here, and I'm going to set this value to about +5. So again, now when it plays, you should see a little more rotation on the can, just to give it some more realistic movement. And again, the position of my can seems a little off. So again, I would just want to open up the path rotation and maybe adjust that just a little bit. All right, now we are going to start adding some animation to the spray paint. So make sure you select the paint layer. Once you have the paint layer, open up the content menu. And then we're going to look, once you're in the content menu, we're going to go to paint. You're going to go to this add, hit this button, and we are going to add a trim path. So now once you have the trim path open, you're going to basically sort of set our in and out points here. So first thing we're going to do is at the 0 second mark, you're in the trim path, look for where it says end, drop a keyframe, then we're going to select this value to 0. All right, once you have that set to 0, we're going to go to our last keyframe, so the 4th keyframe, go back to the trim path, and then you're going to change the end from 0% to 100%. So again, I got to make sure that this is at 0. I'm going to go to my last keyframe and then change this end from 0 back to 100. So essentially now when the can moves, it creates the illusion of the paint being made here too. So again, it's slightly off. So I'm going to want to also then increase the speed of this by going into my speed graph, dragging the paint values here to the bottom. So again, these squared nodes. And then I'm going to squeeze these inwards like we did for the can so it also matches the spray paint. So it should look a little better now. Right now our next step is we're going to add trim paths to each of the drip layers here. So essentially when the spray paint is sprayed, you're going to then sort of see this drip come in, just to give it again a more realistic animation. In order to do this, make sure you select the paint layer. Once you have the paint layer selected, we're going to go into contents. Once you're in contents, you're going to look for drip. What you're going to notice is we actually have 4 different drip layers. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And you're basically going to do the same thing to each layer. So I'm going to start with number 1. Once I have the first drip layer selected, I'm going to go to add and hit this play button. And then I'm going to hit trim path. Once I have that trim path added, I'm going to open it up in the menu. And similar to what we did to the paint, we're going to sort of make it appear at different times. So again, the drip should be set at 0. So we're going to drop our keyframe for end. And then we're going to change this value from 100 to 0. And you can sort of see that first drip layer starting to disappear. All right, once we have that, we're then going to drag the can across. And then once it passes the layer, so maybe about right here at the 1 second mark, we're then going to increase this 0 to 100 to sort of give it that drip feel. So again, now that it gets sprayed, the timing here is not working very well, so I'm going to move this first keyframe over a little bit just so the pen, right when the can passes, so I'm going to move this over again. So the can passes it, and then you're going to sort of see that drip starting to occur here. Well, that looks a lot better. And then just sort of to slow it down, again, I'm going to move this keyframe over a little bit. And then I'm going to select both of them, right click, and then I'm going to just sort of add easy ease to make it look a little smoother. So again, just play around with keyframes. You want to make sure that you do this for each drip layer. And I'll just show you one more example. So again, now I'm going to go to my second drip layer. I'm going to do the same thing I did to the first. Hit the play, go to add play, and then I'm going to add my trim path. Once I have my trim path added in the second layer, I'm going to open up the sub menu. I'm going to go about right here. I'm going to drop my keyframe for end and set it to about 0%. And again, as the can goes, you should sort of see this drip layer also starting to follow. So I'm going to go about right there. Increase this value to 100. Select both of the keyframes, right click, and then I'm going to just add keyframe assistant, easy ease. So again, now you should sort of see a more natural drip here. And then again, make sure you do these same steps to layers 3 and 4. So again, you should have added the trim paths to all 4 of your drip layers, and it should look something like this now. All right, we're almost done, but now we're gonna add just a few effects to the paint just to give it more of a messy feel, because right now it just looks a little too clean. All right, so in order to add effects, you're gonna go up to the window panel. Once you have window panel, select effects and presets. It's gonna open up some sort of window. And the first effect that we're going to add is called the Gaussian blur, G-A-U-S-S-I-A-N. You're gonna click and then drag the layer of the effect into the paint layer. Once you have that, it's gonna open up a little side menu here, and we are going to adjust the blurriness from 0 to 15. So again, now it just gives that more of a realistic sort of view. So again, instead of it just being really solid, just adding some blur to give it a little more texture. All right, the next effect that we're gonna add is called Simple Choker, S-I-M-P-L-E-C-H-O-K-E-R. Again, click and drag into the paint layer, and then we are going to change the choke matte to about 11.70. What that does is it's basically just making this shape look like it's all just part of one thing, especially so for where the drips are. It just gives it a more of a realistic look to it. So again, that number was about 1170. All right, one last effect that we're gonna add is called Turbulent Displace, T-U-R-B-U-L-E-N-T, Displace. Again, click and drag the layer into the paint. And now we're gonna just sort of mess around with some of the amount and the size. So the amount we're gonna change to 18, and then the size you will change to 20. And again, this is just giving the paint more of a sort of rough look. It shouldn't be as clean, it's dripping, right? Okay, now when we play this, you should sort of see these effects in motion. And then again, you can mess around with this however you see fit. So again, I might add just a little more blurriness to this paint layer. Just sort of to play around and mess around with it a little bit more. Almost done. And at this point, you know, your animation should look something like this. Really quick, I'm just gonna show you how to change the color of the spray paint and then how to turn it in. So in order to change the color, make sure you go to your paint layer. Once you have the paint layer open, you're gonna open up this menu, and then you're gonna select paint. Once you select paint, go up to here where it says stroke. Then I'm gonna change this from yellow to like an orange color. Actually, no, I'm gonna go for like a purple. So again, I'm gonna go just like a light purple. Make sure once you have your color selected, you wanna copy this value. That way, when you go in to change the drip, that the color is consistent. So I'm gonna select this, Command C, hit OK, and then I'm gonna go into each of my drip layers and then change the color just by pasting in that value that I got for this color. So again, going in, Command V, hit OK, go to my last one, Command V, hit OK. So again, now I added all the trim paths. I was able to match the can to the paint, add some drip, and then change the color. That's about it. So now to turn it in, you want to go up to the top, look for where it says composition. Once you're in composition, add to render queue. Click on where it says try yourself MP4. You're going to name it your name. So in this case, the Betts spray paint. Hit save and then render. You get that nice sound effect. The file should be on your desktop, and that's what you turn into canvas. Nice job.